Yeah, I noticed that. I listened to some episodes and it just kind of like, it's almost like a fade in.
So we used to do intros, but I hate intros now. I feel like you just kind of want to get straight into the conversation.
Right.
Because whenever I listen to someone else's podcast, if I've never listened to it before, I skip straight to the intro.
Yeah, the intros can be long sometimes. That's true.
If you're like a Marc Maron and you're going for 15 minutes, like,
yeah,
taking the piss at that point. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Let's get into the chat.
Although that's part of his show, is like his personality, and like you want to get caught up on what's going on. You know, a lot of people are like, you know, what's going on with Marc? I want the latest.
Yeah, you become invested in the host and in the person themselves and their life and what's going on.
Yeah. So I know people who are, in fact, maybe 5-6 years ago, I had a period where I would listen to the intros of every new WTF and then just bail on the guest. I mean, sometimes the guest, I would be like, okay, I'll listen to this, but a lot of times I would just be like, I don't care about this, but I do want to, like, I don't know what it was. I was in like a period where I was just like, I got to keep up with Maron. So I would like hit the intros.
I guess at that point, the intros almost become like a vlog or something.
Yeah.
Like almost like a diary entry. You're checking in with that person and where they're at that point in their life. Like Instagram even, you know.
Yeah.
It's a daily update.
Now, recently I've noticed that Maron's doing, he's doing like yoga on his porch on Instagram Live, that's a choice.
That doesn't seem very Maron.
No, I know. I mean, you know, but people change, you know.
I guess you mellow a little bit as you...
Yeah. I haven't...
Time moves on.
That hasn't really struck my fancy, really, but...
Yoga on a porch.
There's like 600 people like watching him do yoga on his porch.
I thought we could start off with a little bit of kind of corporate minutia, because I know that takes your fancy a little bit.
Sure.
When it comes to branding and that sort of stuff, because there was a bit on Time Crisis maybe 6 months ago, end of last year, when you talk about the Travis Scott McDonalds kind of whole thing.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the BTS version of that, the BTS McDonalds collab? I
think so, yeah. I like the idea of the Built to Spill McDonald's collab better.
When was this?
I mean, we just have like an ongoing joke on the show. It's a very like dad style joke that BTS is actually Built to Spill. That's the real BTS. You know, who are like a psychedelic kind of indie band from Idaho.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What was the BTS meal? I don't care. I really don't even care. It's just funny. Like I don't care about the specifics. And we had the joke about the Mountain Brews meal, which was, any burger you want, no fries. And then you bring a 6-pack and you eat it in the parking lot in your van. That's the Mountain Brews, meal.
I dig it.
What was I don't remember what the BTS one was even.
Well, the thing I found funny about the BTS one was it was like 9 chicken McNuggets, medium fries, a Coke, and then like 2 special sauces or something. So it's basically a normal meal.
You're right.
You could pick that up for cheaper than what they're charging for it. But the article I read in it the other day was going in depth about how you couldn't get this meal in the United Kingdom. And I'm like, it's 9 chicken McNuggets, fries and a Coke.
Yeah. What, do they not sell a 9-piece, or you have to get a 6-piece and then they get 2
Well, no,
6?
they do, but they just don't sell it in the BTS kind of, I don't know, packaging or whatever.
Is there like packaging on the cardboard, or is there any sort of specific branded content printed on the cardboard casing?
It's like a purple box or something that says BTS on it.
You know, there's freaks who are collecting that stuff for sure.
Well, I think they did a merch thing as well, like similar to Travis, where you get, like long sleeves and whatever that are like $50. Like, people snap that shit up.
Through the looking glass, dude.
Where does this go, do you think? Where does this kind of progress to? This whole kind of like hyper commercialization of artists and...
I have no idea. I mean, you got to think, those are like more like kind of business. At that point, that's like, there's like the BTS corporation who are like, who's ever, the management team or whatever are like, let's do this. Let's team up with McDonald's. It's not really.
Well, I mean, they've probably been offered that you can get $1 million each if we do a promo that's going to take a couple hours. Yeah.
Who knows? It's like, I'm sure if like, I mean, maybe this did happen. I'm sure like in the 70s, if like McDonald's was like, let's team up with the the Carpenters, or like let's team up. You know who would have been in Kiss? Let's team up with Kiss. Let's make a Kiss meal.
You could have got the action figures and everything.
1970s. I guess Kiss was probably deemed like too edgy and weird for corporate America, but I mean now I could see. I mean, I don't think it's like that different. It's just sort of maybe corporate marketing is not as scared of like pop stars and rock stars, or pop stars and rock stars are now less edgy. I don't even know. I just think maybe in like 50 years ago, there would be more of a divide between corporate advertising and pop stars, but now it's like full fusion.
With like social media and stuff, that started to shift. Like I always find it bizarre whenever I see, you know, McDonald's or KFC tweeting and they tweet like it's a person.
Right. Yeah.
Like they tweet like "we" or something, and it's a very kind of colloquial tweet, and it feels very odd and slightly sickening coming from a corporation.
Yeah, I mean, they're just corporations are people too, man.
Are they?
Well, legally they are. Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah.
In the United States, that's something that comes up a lot, you know, with campaign donations and stuff and all that. Yeah.
Wait, so if a corporation donates to a campaign during an election, it counts as like a singular person donation?
Well, they can donate unlimited amounts at this point. Actually, people can only donate up to like $2,800, I think, individually. But anyway, I'm not an expert on campaign finance law, but I know.
Well, I guess with corporations and stuff, that's where all the kind of controversy comes, when you see like, you know, big pharmaceutical companies donating or oil companies or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean,
it's very transparent in America. Like obviously that goes on everywhere, but in America it feels very kind of open and just there for show.
It's open corruption. I mean, it's basically open corruption, legalized bribery, where like, I'm a congressman from this district where this oil processing plant is, or, you know, the corporate headquarters for Exxon is, or whatever, and yeah, they give me a lot of money to represent their interests. I mean, that's how it works. That's what it's like, very bald at this point, straight up. That's why, you know, it's hard to get environmental legislation through. It's why it's hard to get healthcare legislation through. Special interests, folks.
Is that better than it being done behind like closed doors though? Like if the corruption's kind of there to see, but then that makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a political analyst. I don't. This is not my forte.
we were talking about McDonald's. McDonald's started in California, right? Did it start in LA?
It started in San Bernardino, California, in like 1948, I think.
Is that kind of like top of LA, like slightly north?
It's like east. It's like 50 or 60 miles east of California, in the Inland Empire, very hot area.
Whenever I see images of LA on a map in kind of like San Bernardino, it just seems to be like a city kind of stretching out toward it, and there's no real land kind of dividing the two. It just keeps going.
Yeah, at this point, if you drive on the 10 or the 210, it's pretty continuous development. I'm sure in the 40s and 50s there were it wasn't like that. I mean, there were small towns. I'm sure, like, you know, Claremont and those kind of towns were there, but they were tiny. But yeah, I mean, that's classic, right? The LA sprawl. I mean, yeah, when people think of sprawl in the United States, they think of LA. Even though it's obviously something that's characteristic to most cities at this point, particularly in the West, where there's the room to do that.
Even if you look at places like Austin and stuff now, like what's going on there? Like
what's going on there?
Well, it's kind of like mass immigration, isn't there?
Oh, people are moving there. Yeah.
And they continue the kind of building. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if they're building or if it's just getting more expensive. I've heard that.
Yeah. Supply and demand, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't keep my finger on the pulse of Austin. I've been there a few times. Cool city. Austin's cool. Great food.
Yeah. What kind of stuff?
All kinds, man. New American cuisine. I went to like a great Japanese restaurant in Austin. Obviously there's barbecue. So it's like, I was there a few years ago and like you could just like walk around all day. It was like a great walking city. I was there in the fall. It wasn't too hot. It was fun. Just straight up tourism.
That's the thing you don't think about America, like coming from someone who's across the pond, is the fact that you can basically explore. I mean, it's an entire continent, basically. Like we live in the UK here, it takes you like 12 hours to drive from one end of the country to the other, whereas America, You can be going for days.
Wait, so are you in Glasgow?
Going back on Sunday. I'm back up in Aberdeenshire at the minute.
Oh, Aberdeen? Is that where you're from? Aberdeen?
Yeah. Same as Cobain, but quite far away.
Oh, yeah. I guess Aberdeen, Washington's probably named after Aberdeen, Scotland. Scotland seems cool, though. I went there once, like a long time ago, but it seems cool. I mean, Edinburgh's beautiful. The countryside's beautiful. What place does Teenage Fanclub occupy in the culture of Scotland?
You're a big teenage Fanclub.
Yes, I love Teenage Fanclub.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious if they're like, are they like heroes there, or are they like kind of like they're 90s band? Like, is it?
I'd say like a legacy artist, like the same that we would kind of like Belle and Sebastian or something.
Right, because they're from Scotland.
Like a band who have a big reputation, are appreciated in the culture, but haven't done as much of late.
No, yeah, they're old. I mean, but if they played like a show in like Glasgow or something, would it be like to like 3,000 people or like 500 people or like?
Oh yeah, you'd be in the thousands. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, because if I saw them a few years ago. They came through here, and it was like, you know, like a mid-sized club. It's probably like, I don't know, 400 or 500 people cap. They're not going to play.
Did they ever break America though, or did they kind of just have a cult fan base there?
I bet in the 90s they would have played bigger venues. I would think. I could be wrong. Now they're like, they're not obscure, but like they're not a band that comes up a lot. Let's put it that way.
It's very hard to kind of keep that longevity going though. Like if you look at how many artists actually manage to maintain, you know, playing like venues in the kind of 4-figure range over a career for like 20 years or something, like it's a very small minority.
Yeah.
You kind of have your moment in the sun. You've got to appreciate that when you have it, but it goes quick.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're still doing it in Scotland, at least. 4-figure venues.
I feel like Belle and Sebastian have kind of got more of a presence over here, though.
Sure.
Yeah. Like they played Transmit, which is like our biggest music festival, kind of second from top, I think, like a few years back. Like they still have it kind of going.
Well, they're like a generation sort of after Teenage Fanclub.
We're Teenage Fanclub kind of early 90s, like a little bit.
Yeah.
A few years before Belle. Yeah.
Yeah, early 90s. I think of Belle as like early, or like, very late 90s, early 2s, right?
I think Belle kind of hit here mid-90s. They probably hit a little bit before like 96.
I'm sure you're right.
They kind of started to blossom here. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
The reason I was asking about McDonald's in California a few moments back was that this new EP that you've just put out, a large part of it seems to kind of explore your relationship to California after moving there.
Yeah. No, it's definitely... I mean, the whole Mountain Brews project is very California centric, I think. But this one in particular, though, with earthquake country and look at the sun. A lot of the songs in the EP are about just like it being really hot out and just like generalized anxiety of like it's hot out. What the hell? But yeah, I mean, I lived in like Northern California for like 10 years. The vast majority of my adult life has been in California, Northern and Southern. And so, I mean, and a lot of the musical DNA of Mountain Brews is basically the Grateful Dead and the Eagles, two of the most iconic California bands from the 1970s. There's not a lot of there's not like a big Venn diagram with them really, even though they were contemporaries. But we just thought it was like the band thought it would be fun to try to combine those aesthetics.
The Eagles feel they were almost like one of the first kind of stadium rock bands. Would that be a fair assessment?
It might be a fair assessment. I mean, they were very professional.
That kind of mainstream polish to them that feels like it can translate.
Right.
Across a wide spectrum.
Yes. I mean, they were immensely popular. They were more popular than the bands that came just before them that influenced them, like maybe like the Flying Burrito Brothers or the Byrds. You know, there was like the nascent LA country rock scene happening in the late 60s. And then the Eagles kind of sanded off the edges and had a much more like polished sound, which, you know, was divisive among like real like rock heads. I don't think
they got a bit of hate.
I don't think they like the Eagles. The Eagles are like like the watered. They thought of the Eagles as like the watered down commercial version of like more authentic rock that was happening. Now I wasn't around then, so I didn't have that context. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I was always just like, the Eagles songs are amazing. Hearing them on the radio all the time, they just always like resonated with me. I see the humor in liking the Eagles. I understand that the Eagles are lame, but like I still love the Eagles. And I think the other guys in Mountain Brews, we all kind of feel similarly. Like, yes, it's funny to name check the Eagles, but like it also, like, that music sincerely does resonate. The lyrics are great. I prefer the country rock stuff. I prefer the earlier stuff. Lion Eyes, Take It Easy, Tequila Sunrise. But yeah, I mean,
I think with time, though, if it's good, the kind of stigma that surrounds it when an issue that comes out always fades away. Like, if it's good music, it'll kind of push through that and have a bit of longevity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, the Eagles are immensely popular.
I mean, they were one of the biggest selling bands of all time, right, in America. They were up there for number one at one point, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yes. I don't know, like, the exact current status of this, but I do remember hearing that, like, their Greatest Hits Volume 1 compilation was the greatest selling album of all time, beating out Thriller. Maybe of, like, the 20th century sales, it was, like, the highest. Maybe, I bet that's waned. I don't know what the current number one is, but for a long time they held the belt for like number one, which is the Greatest Hits collection. And Thriller was number two. Thriller was an album. So I don't know. Greatest Hits compilation is kind of cheating, but who cares? Whatever. But yeah, the Eagles were immensely popular, but I still think in terms of like critically focused rock fans, the Eagles are still not popular. They still get no love. It's still, you're still facing an uphill battle if you're like hanging out with people that like, you know, consider themselves music connoisseurs, and you bring up the Eagles. That's an uphill battle.
I think more so in America. I think you're outside of America, you have that slight romanticism of it being foreign, and then as a result of that, it kind of pushes past that.
In Scotland, you're saying?
Yeah, I reckon so. I don't think they're really considered lame over here.
They're not considered lame?
I don't think as much, because they kind of more blend in with the fact that it's that kind of slightly overproduced American rock. Almost a little bit like, you know, like Pearl Jam or something.
See, Pearl Jam to me seems very lame. But that's a whole other conversation.
I have a real soft spot for Pearl Jam.
That's cool.
I dig about Pearl Jam.
Do you like anything after Vitology?
Not as much. I mean, there's a few solid tracks. It kind of...
Are you a No Code guy?
I used to love 10. That was kind of my...
Oh, well, that's the first record. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone loves the first record, but...
I think that first record sucks. I like Verses. And,
yeah?
Yeah, it's just awkward. It's just like... I mean, here's the thing. There is a certain amount of charm to the early Pearl Jam years.
I mean, it's dumb, but you gotta love it.
I don't love it. I don't think... I think the song... I think Jeremy's terrible. I think Alive is terrible.
Oh, man.
But I do... There is like a charm in that there was a bunch of guys in Seattle who like are real into like Jimi Hendrix and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and like they like write these like classic rock instrumentals, and then they find Eddie Vedder, who makes up the vocal parts. And
he's a great vocalist.
He's a great vocalist, great frontman. And then it's like, but then there's this weird schism where they're like, yeah, man, we're a rock band, this rules. And then Eddie's all like freaked out about his punk credibility. And it's like this hilarious collision of like Eddie Vedder wanted to be in like Fugazi basically, and then the other guys are like, well, I'm into like Jimi Hendrix, like what? And that, I think that did create, like, for the first few records, it created like I think on Verses that kind of comes out. I think this weird friction between like classic rock and like punk is really in Verses and Vitology in an interesting way.
He almost reminds me that when you talk of him, they're kind of worrying about his punk credibility. That feels to me like John Mayer, like doing, you know, the Grateful Dead.
Wow, so what do you mean?
Like him kind of hopping into that to try and... I mean, John Mayer, he's a pop star, but he seems to want to be, like you say, like Jimi Hendrix or someone.
Right.
Like he wants to be that real kind of guitar hero, but struggles with the fact that he's a kind of overtly cheesy pop star.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get a sense from John Mayer that he's like sweating his credibility, really. Maybe because he's like a guy in his 40s at this point, and he's like, whatever. Maybe like because like
get past it.
Yeah, I mean, when Vedder started Pearl Jam or joined Pearl Jam, he's probably in his early 20s, and he was like, young and hungry and like, Mayer just seems like, oh yeah, I'll play in the Dead. Cool.
Where do the Dead kind of sit in American? We're talking about the Eagles earlier on, and the fact that they still haven't really managed to break through that in American kind of critical circles as being a little bit lame. Where do the Dead sit in terms of that, with the fact that they became more commercialized? Would that be the right term?
Yeah, I mean,
the way they kind of became a brand almost.
You mean in the last
like a type of culture?
You mean in the last 6 or 7 years?
Yeah, when they came back, and it was Dead and Company, right? That was the name of the tour.
Right. So I would say things started to shift for the Dead's the Dead as a legacy brand around 2015 when they did the Fare Thee Well shows, and I guess it was the 50th anniversary of the band, the 20th anniversary of Jerry Garcia's death. I don't know what happened, and I'm not that interested in I don't really follow the fashion stuff, but yeah, I feel like at some point they broke through and there's this Dead became a cool brand for other people to start riffing on.
Like when you see people wearing a Ramones t-shirt, it's the same kind of vibe.
Yeah, because I remember definitely in the 90s and in the first 10 years of this century, kind of I was saying how the Eagles are still hated in critical circles, the Dead certainly were. I mean, I've always loved the Dead. I remember hanging out in indie rock circles. I'd always rep the Dead, and people were like, "Are you crazy?" It was not a cool thing to be into. And then when we started Richard Pictures, that was 2014.
So this was pre Fare Thee Well tour.
Fare Thee Well. Not that we're I mean, obviously there's been Grateful Dead cover bands forever, but I guess the audience, the context that we were starting the band in, people were definitely what? You're starting a Grateful Dead cover band? That's weird. That's funny. Oh, that's funny, guys. Cool. I mean, we were very sincere about that Richard Pictures, and tried to. I mean, obviously, it's funny for a bunch of guys in their 30s, or maybe some of us were in our 40s at that point, to start a Dead cover band, but we took it seriously and played good shows. But people thought it was funny, and now I think if you started a Grateful Dead cover band in the last few years, people would be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense." It's something like the wind shifted at some point. I think 15, 16, they became a hipper reference or something.
So that Fare Thee Well tour, do you feel it almost solidified the legacy more so than
their legacy
impacted it in a negative fashion?
Oh, it didn't. No, it definitely did impact it negatively.
Made them a little bit relevant again or something.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I wouldn't have really thought their legacy was in any sort of danger before Fare Thee Well, but yeah, it definitely took them up a notch, and then adding John Mayer to the mix, a younger generation, kind of a celebrity, that helps. And it was a shrewd move. I think I've seen Dead & Co. twice. Yeah, I've seen it once at Hollywood Bowl, once at Dodger Stadium. Fun shows.
Did you ever see the Dead back in the day?
No. Because Jerry Garcia died in 95. I would have been 18. I just wasn't going to shows. I didn't grow up in an area that were or just in high school. It just wasn't
How old was he when he died? He wasn't that old, kind of 40s maybe?
No, he was in his 50s.
50s.
Maybe 53 or something.
It just kind of caught up to him.
Yeah, I remember when he died, and I remember my dad just being well, I mean, man, you live off corn dogs and he's if you live off corn dogs and heroin for 30 years, it's going to catch up to you. I was wow. I remember my dad saying that when the news broke that he died, because my parents liked the Dead too, and I was damn, real assessment.
Shopping at Whole Foods in the last 10 years of his life didn't quite counteract it.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we've talked about that on Time Crisis.
He used to get spotted, didn't he?
Yeah. No, if you go, I've talked to people. Did we talked about this on the show? I used to do grocery delivery out of the Mill Valley Whole Foods. And so I got to know some of the people that worked there, who had worked at that Whole Foods for a long time. This was in 2006 maybe, so only I guess only 11 years after he was dead. So
10 years, yeah.
So people are oh yeah, I saw Jerry in here the day he died.
Fuck.
Yeah. So I think he must have lived walking distance or something from that Mill Valley Whole Foods.
Have you ever painted a Whole Foods?
No. Never painted a Whole Foods.
No.
I would. I mean, no, if I found the right image. Because it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to paint like, an AutoZone or a Chick-fil-A or whatever. I have to find the right, either shoot it myself or find it online. I need to find the right image that has like some sort of poetic sensibility to it that I see. It can't just be like any old photo. And so Whole Foods, that's tough. Sometimes I have ideas of like, I want to paint a cheesecake factory. Do you guys have cheesecake factories in Scotland?
No, they never made it over here.
Are you familiar with Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah, I went to one. Obviously, like kind of here, we tend to go to Orlando quite a lot when you're kids. You know, you go to Disneyland and whatever.
Oh,
and
really?
I went to one when I was in Florida. Yeah, that's a massive thing here. Everyone goes to Florida and you go to Orlando and Universal and stuff.
Oh, wow.
At some point in your childhood, yeah.
Interesting. So you just direct flight to Orlando from Glasgow?
Yeah. Used to drive from Aberdeen to Glasgow for 3 hours and then get a plane from Glasgow to Orlando. That's the one
like in the
holiday
winter.
destination everyone goes to. Yeah, around about October.
Funny.
Kind of autumn break.
I didn't know about that. The Scottish love of Florida. I like that.
I think it's just Disneyland. Disneyland's got that kind of universal
Was that
feel,
your,
you know?
Was that your first exposure to America? Was Orlando?
Yeah. Yeah. Red Lobster.
Oh, hell yeah. I just did a painting of a Red Lobster. It's called Arizona Red Lobster. It's a red lobster, and then I put all these cactus in front of it. But anyway, I've been trying to do a painting of a Cheesecake Factory, and it's like, it's hard to like, I've driven around a bunch of the ones around here, and it's just hard to like find the right vantage point, you know, because they're big and they're like just weird looking. And it's like, but I think I finally cracked it. I think I'm going to do a painting of it's like a combination of a Cheesecake Factory and a P.F. Chang's. They're right next to each other.
That's interesting because quite often your paintings have a sense of like isolation about them. Like usually it's the one building on its own.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels quite out there in the open.
Yeah. It's hard to say what elements go into a composition that's going to make me want to paint it. But I've been searching for the right Cheesecake Factory image for years. And I think maybe I found it.
So when you find it, will you shoot that? And that's what you base the painting off of?
Yeah, if it's in person or I'm just digging around on the internet. I like digging around in like Google Street View or just like doing like weird Google searches, just like, yeah, like Cheesecake Factory, Orlando, Florida, or like Cheesecake Factory, Houston, Texas. Because you'll get different, if you just type Cheesecake Factory, you'll just get images of like the food, you know? So you have to, if you put in a location, then you'll start getting like shots of the buildings. And 99.9% of them are uninteresting, but every once in a while, someone like accidentally takes like a interesting picture.
Can you pinpoint what it is about that picture that's resonating for you, or is it just based upon feeling?
Yeah, it's just it's more intuition. It's like this, either like the light is like, it's usually just like the composition. Like it's not, because a lot of times people like shoot a building, they're too close to it, you know, it kind of fish eyes out, or like it you know, that like the parallel lines of the building are converging, you know, it has like some sort of lens distortion. I don't want any of that. I want like clean, neutral documentation of the building that has like a sense of space and elegance to it. And it's hard.
Almost like unobtrusive.
Yeah. I can't have a bunch of like cars, and I mean, I'll remove stuff and move stuff around, move trees around, take cars in, put cars out, but there needs to be like, the bones need to be like, whether this is something I'm shooting or whether I'm finding it, it's gotta just, there has to be like an elegance to it. And it's rare to, if you're just Google searching like Olive Garden, they're just going to be chaotic snapshots. And yeah.
Did you see those George Bush paintings he did a few years back of like kind of famous political leaders and stuff?
Yeah. They're surprisingly kind of good.
Well, I think he'd kind of just done it based off like the top Google images, hadn't he? That's why my mind was coming to when we're talking about Google searches there.
Yeah.
That was like the number one photo, and he kind of just
really?
painted it.
That's funny.
Like slightly off.
Well, that looks good right there. I'll just do that.
That's not a bad impression. When you looked at that, well, it's interesting you're kind of saying that they were all right. What was it about when you looked at them that kind of resonated with you?
Well, I have to look again. Here, hold on a sec.
They're funny. They're kind of like, it's almost like, you know, like the uncanny valley, like with CGI, where the eyes are slightly off and there's something slightly unsettling about it.
There was just like a weird, hold on. Oh yeah, like the Putin one.
Yeah.
The Putin one is kind of haunting. They're like I would think they would be kind of like. I would assume they would have been like more kind of blandly like photographic, but they're not. They have like like his color is like kind of nice. I'm looking at this Putin one, and like it's on this purple background. It's very creepy. It's like a purple background, and then it's just like I don't know. There's just a vibe there. I can't tell what all this stuff. Some of it's not as good as others, but
that Putin one is bizarre.
The Putin one's intense. That's a good painting. Like I could honestly like if some artist painted, like if someone that wasn't George Bush like did the Putin painting and did other paintings that had the same quality of the Putin painting, I could see that like at like a real art gallery. Now some of the other stuff, it seems like he accidentally made that. Like I don't think he quite understands why I like the Putin painting. I'm looking at the other stuff and it's not as interesting. He might have gotten lucky with that Putin painting.
Do you like the Putin painting because it almost captures a slight unsettlingness about Putin himself and the darkness that's kind of, you can always see it bubbling there? It's just the way those eyes are positioned. Yeah, they're slightly off.
And this like it's very low contrast. The purple is really kind of an interesting vibe. Like his lips are like kind of really tense, and yeah, it's just a creepy painting. Even if I didn't know who Vladimir Putin was, I would still like it. But yes, an ex-president painting an adversarial foreign leader is it's really weird. It's really funny. Imagine if Bush had done like a portrait of bin Laden.
I could see him doing that in the future. He doesn't have the perception and the awareness to not.
I mean,
I want to see how he would paint his staff. I want to see what his Cheney would look like, what his Rumsfeld would look like.
That'd be interesting. That'd be tight.
Rumsfeld passed away, didn't he? Recently, this year.
Yeah.
And it's such an odd period of history because it was kind of right, when we look at it in the context of what we have now, it was right before shit kind of went a bit crazy, and yet it was kind of the crazy version of normalcy.
I don't know about that. I remember when Bush was running in 2000, I was like shocked how inarticulate he was. I remember being like, and like, I guess, it was 2000 that he ran and beat Gore. I remember just being like, what? This guy is such a moron. Like, this is crazy. The president's son is running and he's clearly an idiot. And it's like, he's actually going to like win the nomination. This is crazy. It didn't seem normal at all to me.
Do you think it was a stepping stone to Trump? Could
Trump
have gone in without Bush being there first?
I don't know. Palin was definitely a stepping stone to Trump because she was just like balls out. Just
she was bizarre,
dumb as hell. Just like so out of, I mean, Bush was dumb, but Bush at least had the trappings of like, he went to Yale or whatever. You know, he came from a fancy family. Palin was truly like plucked from obscurity and was just like chosen for like the most cynical kind of marketing reasons. Obviously it didn't work out, but I see her as like a real omen of things to come. But also everyone's Trump is totally like a unique guy. I mean, he's totally like everyone's like, who's the next Trump? And it's sort of like, he was so unique. You're never going to get another Trump. I mean, you'll get someone else.
Crack.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just don't.
It would be like David Lynch running for president.
Well, but like, I mean, Trump was just so like, people are like, well, what's going to happen with Trumpism? And they're like, and I'm thinking nothing unless he runs again. Cause it's just like, that is like, there's nothing beyond the Trumpism outside of Trump. It's just like true. Like it's just him. So I don't know. We'll see. I could see him being president again. I could see that happening. If they let him back on social media, this is like truly how, we'll see how cynical these social media companies are. Because like, what is it? Like 2 weeks before he's done with his presidency, they kick him off because he's not useful to them anymore. And then if they let him back on in like 2023, I mean, that's just like, come on, guys. Like if you'd say that you were so worried about how dangerous he is and whatever, but you're going to let him back on, and then he'll run again. And I could honestly see him winning. But who knows?
Well, I mean, Biden feels like a doorstop. He's not a permanent solution to what's going on. He's kind of just a placeholder to stop it for the time being. But he's not a particularly formidable, adversary if Trump was to run once more.
Yeah, it was really close last time, and I could just see it. But if they don't let him back on, then his goose is cooked, I think.
He's a funny guy. It's going to be interesting to see how his last kind of few years play out.
Oh my God, he's going to live to 100.
The final chapter of his narrative.
He's going to live. Oh my God, yeah. He's just going to.
He's on like, what? Is he not on like a ridiculous amount of burgers per day or something?
Yeah, but he's just like that 1% of bacteria that holds on. He's just going to keep crushing McDonald's burgers and like slamming Diet Cokes, get COVID, who cares, man? And just like, he's going to live to 100.
When you go to a location, like a McDonald's to shoot it, how long will you typically spend there?
Not long. I mean, when I'm really like seriously photographing architecture, I'll walk like around the building once or twice, or I'll go to an area that has a ton, like a big shopping center that has like a Home Depot and an Applebee's and all this stuff, which sprawls out over, acres and acres. And I'll walk, that'll take a few hours. Then I'll park once. And then I'll walk in between the stores around the back or just all over. And because you never know where you're going to find a good picture. It's never just like, I'm going to walk to the front of the store and shoot it. You got to just put the time in and like.
So as you're walking, you're kind of constantly on alert. You kind of have that visual kind of mindset on looking up for those images that could appeal to you. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm like that kind of anyway, just all the time.
Is that ever tough?
Catch my eye and be like, oh, look at that. No. I mean, sometimes it's sort of like I'm driving by and I don't have time. Like it's like a weird place to stop, or I'm in a rush, or I'm like, I'm like, well, there was a cool picture. I'm never going to get it. It's gone. But I mean, it's fine.
How long after you capture those pictures will you typically paint them? Do you ever leave them for a while, or is it pretty?
Oh yeah.
Straight away you trinket them down?
No, I mean, sometimes I'm working on stuff. I'm making paintings right now. Some of them are based on photographs I took like 10, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Some of them are just things I shot like last year, or things I found, like a week ago.
What are the ones from 10 or 15 years ago?
The same stuff, I'm working on a painting of like a Barnes & Noble and a Home Depot.
Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
They're kind of slowly fading out.
Yeah. And I just, I have like a big kind of archive of photographs, and I don't know. When I'm starting a bunch of new work, I'll like start to pull out pictures and sort of just see what kind of like speaks to me. And I think Barnes and Noble, there was like a poignancy to that brand, that I was like, ooh, kind of. And I just thought like this would be, and I thought it'd be an interesting painting to make now. And the architecture is like still the same. So it's, if I shot the picture like in 2007 or whatever, it's like that Barnes & Noble is probably still standing. It could easily just be something I shot yesterday.
Did you have a sense like back in 2007 that it was already beginning that kind of decline of the brick and mortar, the fading out? The internet hadn't fully taken hold at that point.
No.
Yeah.
I thought Blockbuster was doomed by then. That would seem pretty obvious.
Well, DVDs were so cheap at that point, even if you take the internet out of the equation.
Yeah.
Like you could get like a DVD for like $3 or whatever, and you'd probably be the same to rent it.
Yeah. No, I remember thinking, Blockbuster, because Blockbuster had like 30,000 locations or something absurd that they opened. Blockbuster started in like the mid 80s, and by like the early 2000s, there were like 30,000. Like there was a Blockbuster in pretty much literally every town. But I remember
we had them here.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And I remember thinking, like around 2005 or something, like, okay, like, or I guess YouTube started in 06, but somewhere around there, I was sort of like, okay, obviously video on the internet's going to be like a real thing. And it was like, okay, Blockbuster's cooked. But I certainly didn't foresee like the dominance of Amazon.
Well, Amazon started as a bookstore, yeah.
Yeah.
There was no inkling that it was going to become this kind of massive corporation that sells everything.
Yeah, I didn't see like, in 2007, I was like, oh, like Walmart and Home Depot, like these places are going to be here for forever. And they might be. I mean, Home Depot, I think Home Depot is like going to stick around. I mean, I guess you could order like a box of like drywall screws on Amazon, obviously you can, but usually it's sort of like if you're like doing construction or like little projects at home or whatever, it's like you need to go to the hardware store to get something, and you just go that day.
It's hard to tell. We don't know what things are going to be in 20 years, though. Like something like virtual reality comes in, like that could radically kind of change the way that our daily life goes about.
I don't think virtual reality is going to mess with Home Depot, though. I'm betting long on Home Depot.
You've got shares.
No, I don't. But I remember like during the Trump years, like the guy that started Home Depot was like some like conservative like shithead guy, and everyone was like, go to Lowe's instead, which is like it's like the Pepsi to Home Depot's Coke.
See, I'm a Pepsi man. I like about Pepsi Max.
Yikes. I don't really drink soda. I'm too old. You know, it's just like you can't drink soda at this point. It's just like that's like the worst thing for. I feel like soda is like smoking cigarettes. It's just sort of like it's like so bad for you. It's just like just dumping pure sugar into your bloodstream.
But then Pepsi Max is no sugar.
Oh, so it tastes. It's
just all the artificial shit, you know.
Oh, gross. I mean, every once in a blue moon, if I'm like eating some tacos at like a Mexican restaurant, I'll like get a Coke, pour it on ice. It's great. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a grocery item.
I wouldn't have it daily. I feel like that's a bit. Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
I'm doing like six
once
Cokes.
Or twice a week, maybe. You know.
Oh, I'm doing like 6 Cokes a year.
That's a good ratio.
6 Cokes
that's like
a year.
me with fast food, though.
Like McDonald's, what do you hit?
Maybe. I seldom. If I was actually going to go fast food, I'd probably go like an independent, like a fish and chip shop.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't really consider that fast food, but yeah.
That's great. In Scotland, you've got like deep fried pizza and Mars bars and all that shit. We just plunk everything in a fryer, you know?
Yeah. When people say fast food, to me that connotes that it's corporate. It's a corporate chain, like a Wendy's or a KFC. Now, like a local burger place, like a little stand that's like just making burgers, I get that is like fast food, but like to me that doesn't count.
You almost think of it as part of like the kind of smooth packaging and stuff, and the way that it arrives in that kind of commercialized box. It's very like branded and has this association to it.
And it's like a highly like systematic industrialized like process, whereas like the local burger stand is just sort of like, I mean, I can't really get into like the sourcing. Just a place that isn't sort of like we're just like a random burger place. It's not like we're a special like farm to table like organic restaurant. It's probably like similar ingredients really to like a McDonald's, but it's just not as like streamlined. It's just a different energy.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. I had a Taco Bell for the first time last year,
and
it was nah.
Where was it?
Nah. In Glasgow, yeah.
There's a Taco Bell there?
Here.
How many are...
There's a Taco Bell in Aberdeen as well.
What? Is that a new thing?
I don't remember them being a thing like 5-10 years ago, but they're over here now.
I remember looking into that, or I remember being in Great Britain like 20 years ago and being like, oh, what? Are there Taco Bells here? I remember like looking into it and like there were like hardly any or none.
Well, this is what I find fascinating about America, is that you seem to have so many more different types of like fast food outlets to us. Like you have like an endless list of different chains, whereas we probably have like a solid like half a dozen maybe.
Well, Belly of the Beast over here.
What's your go-to if you're going to swim by and pick something up?
I know I'm like kind of snotty about stuff. Like I'll go to In-N-Out or I'll go to Shake Shack.
In-N-Out's supposed to be good, though. That's kind of like classy fast food, isn't it? It's at the higher end.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it high end. It is
high end as far as fast food goes.
It's a little like fresher. It's not so like chemically. They never freeze the beef. Like it's all, and they're only in California and Nevada. So it's like which is a choice on their part just to keep it like regional. And so it's like because it's a smaller scale, I think they can maintain like a higher degree of like control and like freshness without resorting to like chemicals and freezing and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I like In-N-Out, Shake Shack. I like that, but it's pretty rare that it's usually like on a road trip or something that I'll end up doing that. It's not just like daily life.
When you're painting something like one of these places too, do you ever try and capture that kind of atmosphere of like a fast food place and that kind of slight branding side to it? Do you ever think about that and trying to like incorporate that into the image?
You mean like signage and stuff?
More so just the feeling that you get from something that's like kind of hyper commercialized.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like make beautiful paintings of like very cookie cutter corporate places. So there's a little bit of like that's what gives them maybe like a tension. Yeah. I mean, I think that's inherent in the subject matter, that sort of like, how did you describe it? What, the fast food?
Just like the atmosphere of that kind of like hyper branding.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's inherent.
Like very like glossy, kind of overproduced, like smoothed over, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's inherent in the subject matter. And usually the way I've painted these places, like they're pretty, they seem pretty new. They seem kind of gleaming and like radiant almost. Yeah.
But then also when you paint a picture of like a Pizza Hut on its own exposed, you get this feeling like it's almost like crumbling, if you know what I mean. Like it's falling away and it kind of feels like the last standing brick and mortar restaurants, you know, like the institutions, like shops are kind of going online. Everything's becoming digitized, but restaurants are still this thing that kind of stay put. They haven't moved on yet. Yeah,
I don't analyze it too much or have like a super specific set of objectives when I do these things. I mean, I think the paintings are like, you know, they're like songs or poems. It's like the meaning is like sort of open, you know. It's an aesthetic experience, even though it's very specific in its subject matter.
You'll kind of just have that vague outline and then let it go where it takes you.
Yeah.
Like you know what you want to paint, but you don't exactly know what you want to...
Yeah.
You don't fully know what you want to convey with it. You have some ideas, but you're kind of willing to let the process take you to the final goal.
You have to find it. I mean, you've got to find the palette of the painting. Like what... Because if you have like an image of a Pizza Hut, like there's literally an infinite number of ways you could paint it, you know? And so it's like, for me, it's like I try to find the palette in the sense of light in a painting that'll convey the mood that is reflective of my interior temperament. I think that's what like painters, like landscape painters, they like, if they're working in a mature way that is consistent, like all of their works have the same feel.
Like an album.
Yeah, that gives off like a mood. And it's sort of like, can I find my mood by painting like a Red Lobster?
It's interesting to me that you're drawn to these buildings that are kind of symbols of commercialism, because your parents were kind of the antithesis of that, right? They moved from California into the countryside and kind of got a farm with like sheep and cows and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the 70s, yeah, I mean, it's true. They like lived on a small farm in upstate New York. Yeah, they were definitely not like watching TV and like listening to, you know, the Bee Gees in the 70s. I wouldn't, they weren't like crazy, like bohemians, like out there hippies or anything. They just, yeah, we're kind of just doing their own thing. I think that was, a lot of people did that in that era, like try to do small farming and whatnot.
Did you ever ask them what their kind of motivations were for moving? And were they in a city before?
They lived in like the Bay Area in the late 60s and the early 70s. They lived in like East Bay, like Berkeley area, which would have been cool. That would have been a cool place to live.
That's like a uni town, like a university.
Yeah. University of California, Berkeley is there. But yeah, they live there, and I don't know. I forget. I don't know why they moved back. I don't know why they moved back to the East Coast. I mean, it seems crazy to me, but you know, my dad was from there. I don't know. It seems wild to me that they would do that, but
so you could never see yourself kind of relocating back into the countryside.
Well, not to the East Coast of the United States. No.
What about a little further out of LA? Or are you rooted in the city now?
I could see like living in the desert for stretches of time, maybe.
Just because it's so different.
Yeah, I like the desert. I don't think I could live by the ocean. It's so goddamn expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty good in LA. I think we'll be here for many years to come.
It's funny as well because we think of LA, or from my point of view, you know, across the pond, when I think of LA, it's this hectic place, you know, full of energy and people chasing these dreams, and it has that buzz to it. But when I see your paintings of buildings there, I get a certain sense of like stillness and calm from them. Is that something mirrored in the process for you?
No, they're hard work. constantly worried about deadlines and did I get this right? Is this good enough? I wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about, oh, maybe I should do that differently. No, it's incredibly hard work and not at all relaxing.
What about music? Does that give you that at all, or is that a similar thing to painting?
Well, music is much lower stakes. It's not my career. It's a fun hobby. Mountain Brews, Richard Pictures, and it's collaborative, which is really fun. And so the music is, a lot of that is the reason it all sort of rewarding is like what everyone else brings to it. We work hard on those recordings, but it's also like it's not like it's a hobby. It's hobby rock.
I like that genre. I like the idea of that being a genre,
hobby rock. I mean, I love Mountain Brews. It's like a really fun project, but it's not a source of like stress. Or like
you just take it at your own pace.
Yeah, it's our own pace to do what we want. It's not like, what are people going to think? Is this like relevant? Like no.
It must be nice creating with that freedom though.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I hadn't done music. I had stopped writing songs when I was like in my early 20s probably, because I was getting serious about trying to do painting. We started Richard, because it's all the same people in Richard Pictures and Mountain Brews. It's pretty much the same crew. Started Richard Pictures and then did that for quite a few years, maybe 5 years in on Richard Pictures. And I was like, man, the chemistry in this band is really good. Like everyone is like really understands each other's like strengths.
We should start writing some originals.
And I just was like, we were just joking around one day. And like, we were like, some of my buddies were like, we were like hanging out on this like hillside drinking beer, and like the concept of Mountain Brews came up, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't know. I was just like, Mountain Brews, that's a band. Like I'm going to write a song called Mountain Brews. And then just like, we're just going to like, we already have this great chemistry, like musically. Let's try to do like Grateful Dead meets the Eagles. Like sort of most of the song, like all the first few bunch of songs were all about drinking, which was like also like a funny like angle to take. And just like, it was really fun. It was like a very fun hobby, and it's fun to like reawaken that muscle.
There's a few, I mean, it is kind of touching upon more serious things now too. They're like the first couple songs in the new EP reference climate change, really.
Yeah, they do. To a certain
degree. They do. In particular.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like set out to be like, I'm going to write a song about climate change, but you know, it's just sort of like, it's just in the air, literally. So I just
very much so.
It just was like a lot. I mean, the second that song Here in the Shade is really about like, I think we started writing that. That song is very collaborative. Aaron had the idea for the chorus, like the 97 in the shade. I just ran with it from there for the verses, but I mean, yeah, it's still about a guy sitting in the shade drinking a beer. Think I'll crack a cold one. Sit here under
just
the eave,
ruminating on where the world is going.
Yeah, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I forget the lyric, whatever. But like, it was just sort of like, I mean, yeah, you can only write so many songs about beer.
Well, you can write quite a few songs about beer.
I mean, I'm sure we'll do more. But yeah, it just seemed natural just to write about some other stuff.
As we wrap this up too, do you still have a show opening at the end of September?
Look at you. You really know your stuff. Yeah, September 25th at Nino Meyer Gallery in LA.